So I'm Linda Stephens. I have been now focusing on women's health as a yoga teacher, as a health coach, as a biomechanics nut for nearly 20 years. And I want to help women take back control of the things they can do so that they can trust their bodies again. I'm very passionate about women staying plugged in to affect this crazy patriarchal world of ours. And I really feel that once we get to midlife, we are wise women. We have decades of experience, and it is not the time for our bodies to start feeling like they're failing us and for us to start disengaging when really the world kind of needs us to stay engaged. And the reason, of course, that I'm so passionate about women's health is from my own experience. All passion comes from my own experience, doesn't it? So my own journey. I had my third baby at 40. I was already a pre and postnatal specialist teacher at this stage, used to work in TV, had my first two kids, very close together, just 14 months apart, emergency C-section at 33 weeks, and then a VBAC 14 months later. Realized super quickly that my career in television and two prem babies was like oil and water. At 40, pregnant again, and this time I went into labor at 24 weeks, full-blown labor. I was put on cervix stitched up, anti-labor drugs, put on bed rest, on my left side, pelvis up, heart down. Literally only got up to go to the loo. And at 31 weeks, I'd been lying down for 7 weeks at this stage. Of course, when we don't move, everything atrophies. If you don't use it, you lose it. Everything atrophied. I stood up really quickly one day and my pubic bone completely split. And it was horrendous. And I gave birth with that condition. I was very, very focused on being able to give birth naturally because I'd experienced an emergency cesarean, and I found that very traumatic. Anyway, I couldn't walk afterwards. And I was in all sorts of bother. That is a whole book there, that experience. But I was determined to heal without surgery, and using my experience and then working with a biomechanics expert in the States, I ended up putting together my own program. Eventually I was walking without pain, then running without pain, and eventually jumping on trampolines again without pain. And I had a 5 out of 5 pelvic floor, and I was just like, this is amazing. And I developed my yoga birthing practices and my yoga mums postnatal recovery practices. And then I hit perimenopause. and everything came undone. And this is my peak perimenopause, which is actually for most women, it's around about 46, 47, 48. That was definitely me. I realized that I was in early perimenopause for quite a long time before that, but peak perimenopause, and that's when the wheels started coming off, and I ended up having to do another whole deep dive into third age women's health. And since then, I have been so focused on helping women through the peri to postmenopausal years, and especially around pelvic health, because unfortunately, once we start to lose our ovarian estrogen, all of the pelvic trauma we might have experienced in birthing, so extended pushing phase, an episiotomy, a forceps delivery, cesarean births, especially several cesarean births, large baby, lots of issues which we are able to sustain when we have a lot of estrogen. Once we start to lose our ovarian estrogen, the pelvic area, not just the pelvic floor muscles, but deeper into the pelvic bowl, the urethra, the vaginal walls, everything is very estrogen rich. So when we start to lose that ovarian estrogen, for most women, those pelvic floor issues that we might have experienced postnatally come back with a vengeance. And we need a new strategy. So I'm just going to give you some little stats here. 80% of women, 83% of women actually, latest stats from last year, will experience some form of pelvic floor dysfunction in their lifetimes, normally once we hit those peri to postmenopausal years. And it might just be the odd sneeze leak, but in 2020, incontinence pads started to outsell baby nappies. And disposable incontinence pads contain up to 90% plastic. A single pad can take as long as 500 years to break down. So if we can start to move towards not needing these, it's really good. 1 in 4 women over 40 experience fecal incontinence. Most women over 50 will have some degree, at least a stage 1 pelvic organ prolapsing into the vaginal canal. Many have both, rectocele and cytocele, maybe with the uterus as well. Many women will go into nursing homes because of incontinence issues, and we know that most women stay in nursing homes because of incontinence issues. It's not something that improves necessarily by itself. And we all want to avoid being that potential burden on our families down the track, don't we? So, and of course, all of these issues are a barrier to exercise, because you're not going to necessarily exercise if you don't trust your body. And we know, don't we, that we have to exercise as we age, because, you know, like I said before, if we don't use it, we will lose it. And we know how profoundly important movement, exercise is to every single area of our mental and our physical health. So yes, birthing increases risk, and yes, losing our ovarian estrogen increases risk of these issues. But actually, lifestyle issues and simply aging have just as much impact. So my kind of motto is align with your body and you will align with your life. And over the years, I have seen time and time and time again how much little tweaks to how you stand, how you move, how you breathe, how you rest, have how you eat, have profound differences, make profound differences to how you function. So before I go on, I just need to explain the two extremes of the issues that we experience around the pelvic bowl. So first of all, I'm going to use my bicep to explain this. We have sort of laxity issues. Imagine muscle fibers that have stretched, like post-birth, all the muscle fibers are stretched out, they're lax. Once we lose our estrogen, we sort of get into this more lax arena where the muscle fibers are just losing that strength and elasticity. Similarly, if you're doing a lot of weight training without proper form, we can get this sort of laxity. If we have excessive weight, if we are doing a lot of high impact exercise without mitigation, we can get this sort of laxity, and this is called hypotonia. So hypotonia laxity. But just as prevalent, if not more prevalent, I think, in what I have seen, especially since COVID, is hypertonia. So if you think of hypertonia, and I'm going to get you guys to do this, if you could just lift your arm up and squeeze your fist and squeeze your bicep and squeeze it so it feels like it's all switched on here. So when we have a lot of tension in the pelvic floor, squeeze your fist. When we have a lot of this tension, if we try and do Kegel exercises, for example, and we try and layer tension on top of tension and we don't have length, you can see that there's actually nowhere for the muscle fibers to go. So if you're about to do a sneeze and you need to activate your pelvic floor muscles, if there is tension there, there's nowhere for those muscles to go. So those sphincters can't close anymore. Tension is not strength. Tension is weakness. Now, can you feel how you squeeze your fist here? If you're squeezing it and you squeeze, after a very short period of time, you can it starts to ache, doesn't it? It starts to ache and your shoulder starts to ache and you can feel it up here a bit. And if you try and release your hand now, it's quite hard. You've just been squeezing it for a bit. It's quite hard to release, isn't it? So if you think of sustained tension around the pelvic area, how much that could be affecting every function in the pelvic arena. Yeah, the sphincters, the ability to close sphincters, the ability of those organs to sit well, the ability to eliminate well. So I just wanted you to get how that feels not very nice. So give that arm a little bit of a shake there. Most women have a bit of both. Most women have both tension patterns and laxity. So it is a very holistic approach that we need to take. So I wanted also just to talk a bit more about the stress that we might experience between the ears and how much that manifests in the body, especially for us women in the pelvic bowl. So stress is not just mental state. Yes, when we are especially stressed and in perimenopause and we don't have that progesterone, that chill out hormone so much, we can get brain fog, whooshing feelings of anxiety. Insomnia is a big one, that mental kind of just numbness. But that stress manifests in the body in tension. So we might get that kind of hunched shoulders, very shallow breathing. In fact, I would say many women only use 10 to 20% of their lung capacity because their shoulders are slightly forward, head is slightly forward. If you think of a frightened dog with the tail tucked under, how much that tension completely cuts off your energy flow and creates over time chronic tension patterns. I've got some slides. I'm just going to do a little slide share here. Here we go. Let me get my slide. Look at this. Great. Can we see my slide? Can you guys give me a thumbs up? Thank you. Alrighty, so let me just see if I can do view. What happens if I go into full screen? Is that better? Is that better or same? Thank you, Catherine. Cool. Alrighty, so I just wanted to show you here. Once we hit about 46 or so, 46, 47, the purple line is the estrogen. Around the mid to late 40s is when the average woman, I'm talking about the top of the bell curve here, starts to lose ovarian estrogen. And when we lose ovarian estrogen, it fluctuates madly. It goes up, down, up, down, up, down as it diminishes. Between 35 and 50, we lose only about 35% of our ovarian estrogen. But in the last couple of years before we go through actual menopause, which for the average woman, same thing, top of the bell curve is about 51, it totally drops off the cliff. And that's why towards the actual menopause is when many women will start to experience more stress incontinence, this sort of laxity issues. Whereas we start to lose progesterone. So we start to have anovulatory cycles, which means you don't ovulate in the middle of your cycle. You might still have periods, but you're not ovulating in the middle of the cycle necessarily. And we have to ovulate in order to produce progesterone, which is our chill out hormone. It's the hormone that stops all of that stress response. It also helps soothe the lining of the gut. It helps us to reduce feelings of anxiety. It's an incredibly important hormone for our overall ability to stay chill and not be like, fuck. So we start to lose it actually way earlier than you might think. So I know that when I was in perimenopause, and I kept going to the doctor with, like, what's wrong with me? My moods are all over the place. I can't stop crying and I can't sleep. And they'd be like, oh, well, you're not menopausal because you're still having periods. But that was, a lot more is known these days. But when we start to lose progesterone, it starts from about 38 when we start to have the odd anovulatory cycle. And between 35 and 50, we lose about 70% of our progesterone. And then in the last couple of years, it drops off that last 30% or so. Progesterone is incredibly important, like I said, for helping us to regulate stress levels. And the reason I wanted to bring that to your attention is because, okay, so when I'm in this one, how do I, there we go. That's not what I want to show you. Where's, okay, so it's one. This, we have about 35 or so common issues that many women in perimenopause and postmenopause experience. And I've just put a lot of the hot pink ones are to do with the pelvic area. So things that people experience when we lose our progesterone and our estrogen, how many of these come under the pelvic floor dysfunction umbrella. So as I said, stress isn't just mental, it manifests in the pelvic bowl for us in particular. Our jaw area and our pelvic floor are fascially very connected. So if we are feeling a bit tense in the jaw and the neck and the shoulders, you can almost guarantee that you've got tension patterns in the pelvic floor. And the pelvic floor is the beginning of our whole core system. So I'm just gonna, this is what I thought I was, yeah, so here we go. And when we have mental anxiety, when we have that mental overwhelm, we tend to go more and more into that posture like a frightened dog, shoulders forward, head forward, shallow breathing, tail tucked under. And pelvic tension leads to all sorts of dis-ease, lack of ease in the body, lack of energetic flow, and dysfunction. And the pelvic floor is the beginning of our whole core system. So the pelvic floor muscles are skeletal. They attach to the pubic bone, the sitting bones underneath your bum muscles, and your tailbone, so the bottom of your spine. So the bottom of your spine, where it attaches to the back of the pelvic floor, is the beginning of your core. The pelvic floor goes straight up into your deep transverse abdominal muscles at the front, the multifidi extensor muscles at the back, and your diaphragm, your lung diaphragm. So it's like a big canister, and that canister is our core. Really important for us to understand that it's not just your tummy muscles, it is a whole functioning system together, and the diaphragm and the pelvic floor, they work in synergy together. Hence I call it pelvic core restore. These are the dysfunction issues that I see that really are things that I think we can focus on, because now hang on, I've got a little stat here for you which I want to tell you. Yeah, okay, so there was a study done last year, in it 2024 actually. So 600 women were studied, 18 to 59 years old. This is the study that said 83% of them were dealing with pelvic floor dysfunction issues. 49% said they were doing pelvic floor exit, they were doing Kegels to strengthen lax pelvic floor muscles, but only 9% had done equally, if not more important, pelvic floor relaxation exercises. So basically what they were doing is that, and then trying to do tension, putting more tension on top of tension. Now, we know that progesterone is not only produced in the ovaries. So once we go through menopause, we really need to start looking after the other areas where progesterone is created. So our adrenal glands and our brain. So it's incredibly important once we get to this stage in life to do proactive things that are going to put us in, it's called the default mode network in our brain, to calm us out of that kind of fright, flight, busy, sometimes the fawn mode, going, being on all the time, because we're like frogs in boiling water. So many of us are so used to being on all the time. That's our default. That is our default. And we don't know how to drop into the parasympathetic state anymore. So there was another study done where a whole lot of women were being monitored around. They had monitors on their jaw, around their shoulders, but also in the vagina, and they were shown a movie, and where I think there was like potential sexual threat, and yes, there was marked sort of response, and you could measure the tension just from watching. Nothing happened to them, but just from watching. But what was really pronounced was how much of the tension was actually in the pelvic area. All of the women were having tension through the pelvic area, even more so than around the jaw and the shoulders. So just to understand that the events that are happening in the world around us, even if we think we're fine, it can be having a profound effect. It can start to affect our breathing, more shallow breathing, our posture, more and more rounded and congested and tight. We can be exacerbating our loss of progesterone and estrogen that our adrenal glands could be producing if they are having to pump out more and more cortisol and adrenaline instead of producing the key sex hormones that they could be producing. We exacerbate muscle weakness and we exacerbate tension. So here's a positive thing to know. Leaking issues, whether it is from the bladder or the bowel, pain with intercourse, tension, urgency issues, mainly bladder, frequent UTIs, incomplete elimination, constipation, which we really have to get on top of. Any of you who are constipated, please, we need to get on top of that, because you can reabsorb estrogen. Estrogen, we need to use it and then lose it. Constipation is also the #1 driver of bladder incontinence. So we need to get on top of constipation, and also prolapse organs. Again, we need to mitigate these getting worse, because once it gets to stage 3 or 4, that is more surgery. But there's so much that we can do to just maintain and improve stage 1 and 2. Absolutely. So all of these issues, they are common, but they're not physiologically normal. Yeah, and there is a lot that can be done to improve function, to improve core stability. My motto is our core health is our core wealth. Like I said, pelvic floor, beginning of our core. So I call it pelvic core. And to me, if you are limiting your life and the way you show up in your life, in your relationships, in your work, in your community, because you can't trust your body, then, you know, it's such a shame. So that's why I say our core health, our core, and also the core of our being. It's the core wealth, really, because it doesn't matter how big your pension pot is or your house is or whatever. If you haven't got your health, nothing else really matters. It really does affect us so much. So let's. I'm not so good with slides. Ancient yoga tools are awesome. Honestly, yes, I'm a yoga teacher, so of course I'm biased, but and there's a lot of yoga stuff that actually is designed for men, skinny men who've not had babies. So you've got to be a little bit careful what you're doing, but so many of the tools can be used in a way that is amazing for us. It can help us to regulate our nervous system like that. When you have mastery over your nervous system, it is incredibly empowering. We can very quickly start to improve circulation around especially the pelvic area, to reduce pain, take down inflammation. And we can restore our functional movement. So we can create that length so that we can then strengthen. Absolutely amazing. So here's me demoing just about what we're going to do right now. I say again, align with your body, align with your life. You can see here, I'm in that trying to do a sucky tucky. If you just put your head forward a little bit now, and then just let your shoulders roll forward, and actually I'm going to get you to stand. If you can stand up, stand up. If you can't stand up, then just stay where you're sitting, but tuck your tummy, tuck your tail under as well. So try and round your back and tuck your tail under. So you're doing that. And just notice whether you can breathe or not. And then try the other way, like getting a selfie. Stick your boobs out, lift your chest. Can you see here the rib cage is flaring? So I used to do this. I call this the soldier. And I used to think that was good posture. But again, that completely destabilizes your core. We're not using our diaphragm with the pelvic diaphragm. So what we want to do is get into postural alignment so we can actually also learn to breathe properly as well. So I just showed this squatting when you're all rounded through the lower back. We've got to start getting rid of the whole sucky tucky thing with the bum and the tum. Get your bum behind you. It's called a behind for a reason. We want to have it behind us. Right, so I'm going to stop sharing now. Back, excellent. All righty. So ladies, let's stand for a moment. And I'm going to give you some cues to get into good alignment. Have your chair close by as well. All right, so this is that kind of hit. Look, just put your head forward just a tiny bit, and then just here's your shoulders. Just roll them forward a tiny bit. This head of ours is like a Christmas turkey. It is 8 to 10 pounds of weight. So all of that tension on your neck and shoulders with a little bit of poke, just a 1-2 centimeter poke, is profound. And then our head will always want to be on top of our pelvis. So the pelvis always wants to be below the head. So if we have a head poking forward and shoulders rolling forward, invariably pelvis goes forward, and we tend to lock our knees. And what I see is people tend to have their feet slightly out like that, like a penguin. So we see this slightly rounded C shape, and then we might even do get your shoulders back and do that. So try that, shoulders back, and then I'm going to get you to roll everything out. So just give your upper body a roll like so, and then give your pelvis a roll around. So we just release the pelvis. Try and do circles daily. So I have this thing I call the tea break twist and twirl. I encourage my my women's wellbeing members to put on the kettle, and for that 2 minutes to focus on releasing these psoas muscles. So when our pelvic area is tight, when we're sucking and tucking, the psoas tend to take over, and these guys hold all of our stuff. So circling just releases them. They attach into your lower back. So a lot of the time when we have lower back problems, it's tight. Psoas muscles, they go through the pelvic floors. When these guys are tight, we tend to also have pelvic floor tension issues. So roll your pelvis around. Do the I call this is the this is the twirl part, and then the twist. It's just like the Elvis twist. So we want to mobilize the rotator muscles around the hip joints. They attach into the pelvic floor. So come up onto one. So put your weight on one leg and come up onto the other toes, and then bring your knee in and then out. So in and out. We are adducting, going inwards, and hopefully you can feel a little bit of movement around your hip joint here. And then if you take your hands opposite, so elbows are close to rib cage, and you're going opposite to your knee, and then you start doing this faster and faster, we're getting amazing movement around the waist. Great for toning around the waist, great for digestion, getting stimulation through the organs. And we're moving through the thoracic spine. So a lot of women get incredibly tight around here. It affects our heart health. And we're doing a nice little bit of mobility for the pelvic floor and the psoas and the rotator muscles. So do that. Just 2 minutes, twisting, twirling while the kettle is boiling. And then try and get yourself into good alignment. So I do a thing, and I teach this in my course. I call it getting tall against the wall. I'm going to take you through it really quickly now, but if you come back and watch the video again, try and slow this down and do it for, I'd say, a couple of minutes. So we want to have toes forward, not out. We want to have about 2 inches away from the wall with our heels. I want to soften the back of the knees. So if you are locking your knees, your pelvis will always tend to go forward, and we tend to get a squeeze around the sacrum here. So try to just have slightly soft back of the knees, and your behind is here. So back of your pelvis is against your bit of wall. Good. Now lift and roll the shoulders so they're in the back of the sockets like that. Up to your ear and back. So you can feel the muscles between your shoulders, these rhomboids, they are activated. Up, back, palm forward, back of the hand against the wall. Up, back, palm forward, back of the hand and forearm against the wall. Now, soften the knees. And you might still have your head forward. I'm going to get you to push the back of your head into the wall. So we create a bit of a stretch in the back of the neck area. If you're standing free and you don't have a wall behind you, I call this kitten neck. So imagine you've just been picked up by the scruff of the neck by mother cat. Yeah, so you're like a kitten. Chin is bit in, not down, not up, straight back like a double chin. And this will put your head on top of your neck, which is what we want. And we also get that when we are against the wall. So this is getting tall against the wall. And what we want to do is also draw the back of the rib cage towards the wall. So that soldier thing that I see all the time. People go, oh, I've got overlordosis. I need to tuck my tail more. No, you don't. Invariably, it's because the rib cage is like that. And we actually need to start working on pulling the rib cage back. Ideally, we have the base of the rib cage and the top of the hip bone parallel in alignment like that. So getting tall against the wall, we breathe here for, well, in class I do it for a couple of minutes. And so when you come off the wall, you feel a little bit like a tin man. So I'm going to get you, if you do feel like a tin man, just let everything release and then come back into postural alignment. So it feels like you are the queen and you've just had a big heavy crown put on the top of your head and a heavy ermine cloak over your shoulders. And when we are standing and walking, we want to have our thumbs slightly forward so our chest is open. I see like this all the time, back of the hands forward. And you can see as soon as the back of my hands are forward, I'm like that. So thumbs, or, you know, you're kind of open with your hands. So stand here for a moment. And when we are standing in alignment, we should feel a little bit of activation. And if you have been standing out of alignment for decades, as soon as you go into alignment, you'll be like, oh my God, I can really feel, it feels like I'm working. So over a bit of time, you won't notice that. And if we are in alignment, our skeleton is stacked. If we were to put a big heavy crown on our head, or like a big basket of food on our head, if we were carrying bricks on our head or whatever, the weight of that would go straight through our skeleton and into the ground. We wouldn't be using any more energy to carry something on our head. If we are even slightly out of alignment, well, that's going to cause chaos. So getting ourselves into alignment, and a lot of the stuff I'm teaching is to open up these pectoral muscles so the shoulders can actually sit there, to strengthen the upper back muscles so that the shoulders do actually naturally sit there. Release tension around the neck and the shoulders so your head actually can go back into alignment. To activate and strengthen all of the core muscles here, again, so that we can actually have this great alignment and then the natural synergy between the diaphragm and the pelvic diaphragm. They are diaphragms and they are the top and the bottom of the core system. And they work together almost like two jellyfish, if you think of two jellyfish in the ocean. So as we breathe in, the diaphragm pulls the breath into us, and our pelvic diaphragm kind of drops like a trampoline and receives the weight of our guts and our organs dropping down. And then as we breathe out and the diaphragm pushes the breath out of us, our pelvic diaphragm gets a gentle massaging vacuum with every single breath if we are aligned and breathing well. And you can see that as soon as I'm like that, I have got none of that. I've got none of that massaging of the pelvic organs and the pelvic floor muscles. All I've got is shallow breathing, anxiety, stress, tension loop. Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. Amazing. Okay, so next bit, we're going to do posture, but seated. So grab your chair now, and this is a great thing if you are in the car, because most cars, and I tell you what, I saw a whole lot of babies yesterday. I was teaching live, and there was a class before mine, mums and bubs, and actually the teacher, I used to teach her mums and bubs 10 years ago, so that was quite cute, and she was teaching mums and bubs. Anyway, a lot of bubs, they're put in the, you know, the, what do you call the cradle thingies? They're like this. And you think about car seats for babies, they're like this. So right from a young age, we are putting bubs into, you know, into this dreadful alignment. And yet when you see little ones, when they, you know, toddlers, when they start to walk, they've got this lovely straight back, and they've got a nice big bum and nice big tum, and they go straight down and straight up, don't they? They go down and play, and then straight up into good squatting movement. So we need to look at toddlers. All right, so when you are sitting, most chairs like this one put you into that C shape. Now, if you are at the lights and doing a Kegel exercise, because you're like, oh, I've got to get my 100 Kegels in, and I'm doing them at the lights like somebody told me to on Instagram, and you are in this position, then all you're doing is creating tension on top of tension, especially around the anus area, which is where we have 70% of our pelvic floor muscle fibers. So please don't do that. Instead, start to get yourself into good alignment first. So I'm going to show you how to get into good alignment, and we're going to do some breathing. Bum at the back of the seat. So just pick your cheeks up for a moment and spread your bum cheeks and feel the bones underneath the bum cheeks, the sitting bones. This is the attachment points. Remember I said the pelvic floor muscles are skeletal. They attach to your sitting bones, your tailbone, and your pubic bone at the front. So spread your cheeks, put your bum at the back. Have your scarf or blanket or towel or whatever, jacket nearby, and do your lift and drop. So your shoulders are not here. And I often see people I go lift and drop, and I go, no, this is why we need to do a bit of work on it, because if there is stiffness here and your lift and drop is there, we need to mobilize so that you can actually get shoulders into the back of the socket. So one shoulder and then the other. And I always say to people, do one at a time, because if you just do that, they fall back again. But if you go up and back, then the upper back muscles, those rhomboids, are activated, and then up and back. Now, adjust your head, chin in, mother cat, picked you up by the scruff of the neck. So we have that head on top of the neck, a little bit of a lengthening stretch in the back of the neck if you've been habitually poking. And then you want to take your blanket and put it just behind the bra strap. So if it's a little rolled wedge, I'm putting it not on my lumbar spine, not down here, just above or on the bra strap. So my shoulder blades are sitting on that prop. And can you see now I'm comfortably positioned. There's no strain, but my diaphragm is sitting now on top of my pelvic diaphragm. So now I've got that synergy. My pelvic floor muscles are relaxed and released and open. So now I could do pelvic floor exercises in this position. And you can be driving or typing and you're in alignment. If you're sitting on the sofa and you need to sort out your posture, do this and then just put a cushion underneath your legs so that you can sort of sit comfortably, watch TV, but you're in alignment. So I can't express enough, I can't state enough how much habitual sucking, tucking, rolling, poking is mucking up all of your core function. All right, so I'm going to just turn around here so we can do a little bit of breathing. So we want to breathe down here at the back. This is where we have most of our lung capacity, at the bottom back of our lungs, not up here. And like I said, I reckon most people, not just women, most people use a very small percentage of their lung capacity. And you just, I mean, the lack of vitality from the lack of oxygen going around our body and our brain. So simply by learning to breathe well, again, we can change our whole nervous system state with our breathing. So I'm going to get you to just put your hands on the bottom of your rib cage here, and shoulders are down and the back of the sockets. Now loosen your jaw. So give it a wriggle. And then I'm going to get you to breathe in through the back of your nostrils. So don't sniff. Kind of pull the breath back as if it's going past your ears into the back of your head. And then go like you're misting up a mirror. You might even put your hand here and just go. So you can hear that kind of misting sound. And then gently close your mouth. So you're not clamping, but you're just gently closing it. And breathe in and out, but with that same misting up a mirror sound. So we have a slight constriction through the back of our throat with our chin in. This is called Jalandhara Bandha in yoga. And that slight constriction activates the vagus nerve. So in Latin, wandering, a nerve goes down through the back of our throat, back of our ears. It goes around all of the organs of the body, and that is our super highway into our parasympathetic nervous system. So we want to be able to make sure we're activating that nerve. It only activates on a long exhalation. So if you're shallow breathing, guess what? Your vagus nerve is not getting any action whatsoever, and you're going to be staying in that tension pattern loop, and you're going to unfortunately get worse and worse and worse bladder, bowel issues. So we need to activate that vagus nerve. So I'm going to get you to focus down here and breathe in and see if you can get your rib cage to expand sideways with the breath. I like to imagine it's like an accordion breathing. You know how in an accordion we need to kind of pull it. So when we have the slight constriction, our lungs are having to really work to pull a slow stretching breath in, and then we're kind of having to almost slightly push so the breath leaves here, and then we get a little bit of activation around these deep transverse abdominal muscles and the multifidi muscles at the back, a little bit of action through the pelvic floor as we let the breath go. So breathing in and breathing out. Good. Breathing in and breathing out. Now these next few, hum on your breath out. So create a little bit of noise or sigh. I like humming best. Let's just try this. So breathe in. This time open your mouth and just go ha. Okay. Ah, loosen your jaw. So when we create a little bit of sound, low vibrational sound with an exhalation, like the Brahmahari breath or like a sighing out breath, we activate that vagus nerve even more. So within 3 breaths, we can go from being up in the head, down in the body, and our muscle fibers can start to release. So I do a lot of work in my programs where we are using breath with movement to basically recalibrate all of the muscles and also the pathways, the neural pathways, to reconnect with these with the major functioning of the pelvic floor muscles and deeper into the pelvic bowl. I'm going to get you to work on the slow and fast twitch muscles now. So in the pelvic floor, we have both fast twitch muscles, which we need to stop ourselves weeing, and slow twitch muscles, which we need to stop ourselves passing wind. You know, if you're in a lift and you've had a curry and there's other people and you need to hold that fart in, we need our slow twitch muscles to be activating. So I'm going to now invite you to put your bolster or your firm pillow underneath your feet. I've got a squatty potty here, so I'm just going to show you. This is an old-fashioned one. You can get much smaller ones these days. But look how, as soon as I put my feet up, I can go into, I can just hinge from those hip joints, keep my back pretty straight, so keep the alignment between diaphragm and pelvic floor, but I can go into a squatting position, and we are designed to eliminate in a squatting position. Whereas if we're sitting on the toilet like this, and especially if we are habitually a bit like that and a bit hunched over, our pipes downwards, which should be downwards, and they are downwards if we're in a squatting position, they tuck under instead. So we are much more likely to have to strain on the toilet to eliminate. And we do not want to be doing that, because we can cause our own prolapses, and we can really do a lot of damage if we are straining on the toilet. So a big tip is to get yourself a squatty potty. Should even just use this, like a big bin underneath your feet, so you can put yourself into this alignment. Now, I want you to feel the bottom of your spine where your tailbone is. So take your hands on the outside of your yoga pants, or if you're wearing jeans, on the inside, but on top of your knickers. So you feel where your tailbone is. Yeah. And what we want to do is say we want to feel the pelvic floor muscles where it attaches into the tailbone. So here's the tailbone, and then I'm just going to get you to squeeze and tuck under, and just notice. Can you notice how the muscles are squeezing around the tail? Can you guys feel that? Give me a thumbs up if you can feel. Yeah, so you got that. So on the tailbone, well done, thank you. Yeah, so if I'm like this, and my muscles are like that, so if I'm then trying to do Kegels, can you see how it's just literally, it's like putting, like I said, gasoline on top of a fire. All you're doing is creating more and more and more tension. All of that tension is creating congestion around the whole area. The pelvic floor muscles, which should be like a nice trampoline, are like a scrunched up dehydrated thing, And worst of all, our organs are supposed to sit so that when we're in alignment, they sit bladder here against your pubic bone and lower belly, then your uterus, they snuggle in together, and then your bowel against your lumbar spine. Yeah, and then the pipes go down on about a 90-degree angle. So that's why when we're in a squat, pipes are now going straight down. Yeah, we can eliminate better. But if I'm here and I've got no lumbar because I've tucked so much, and I'm sucking in because I want to look skinny the whole time, I reckon the unbelievable incidence of all of the cancers are to do a lot with this this lack of blood flow, vascular flow around the organs, and this incredible inflammation and tension that so many people are experiencing. So we want to be able to get our organs back sitting where they're supposed to sit. Now let's go back to this position. So fast twitch muscles. I have this in the bathroom boot camp, by the way. So if you haven't got that already, go back and look at the bathroombootcamp.com. It's free. Front of the pelvic floor. That's where we want to be able to get that. I call it closing the hose, where we close the hose. We stop ourselves weeing, and we draw upwards, and then we release. So this is the fast twitch muscles. We want to be able to get those sphincters to close properly, and then we want to be able to lift and drop about a second up and a second down, a second up, a second down. And I do a whole module in my program around bladder control. That is a whole lesson in itself. But essentially being able to relax the detrusor muscles of the bladder and get those sphincter muscles to close properly and activate properly is what we are looking for to reinstate that. Many of us need to basically get the brain back in control rather than our bladder in control of us, especially if you've got, that I call it the key in the door syndrome, whereas as soon as you arrive at the front door, you're like, oh my God, I need the loo, and you're struggling to get to the toilet in time. So at the back, we have most of the slow twitch muscles. And so we want to be able to activate by stopping ourselves passing wind. That's the sensation, and drawing upwards. And I like to go little puffy breaths out to keep the diaphragm high. So as the diaphragm is high, we get a natural vacuum upwards as well. Try not to squeeze your bum muscles. Try to just be around the anus and lifting. And then we need to relax the pelvic floor muscles at the end. Really important to be able to drop and relax. And I suggest when you have been to the loo, when you get up from the loo, you practice the knack. The knack is the ability to activate your pelvic floor with your breath when you're going from sit to stand, or with you're picking up something heavy, or when you get good at it, just before you sneeze, you do the knack and you're able to activate pelvic floor muscles so that we mitigate the impact of the downward pressure. So when you are getting, you might want to teach your older relatives this as well, when you're going from sit to stand, and it's a good time to practice it in the loo, come to the edge of your loo, put your heels down into the ground, lean forward, or hinge forward, so none of this nonsense, none of that silly nonsense, leaning slightly forward, you're breathing out to activate diaphragm, and then as we come up, we push the floor away with the heels. That activates up the hamstrings, into the glutes, into the pelvic floor. Activate by pulling up as if you're stopping yourself passing wind. Yeah. And then once you're up, you release the pelvic floor. So let's do that. Let's just sit down, edge of your bum on the edge of the seat. And actually, let's imagine we're picking up weights. We're at the gym. Yeah. So imagine this is something really heavy, or I've got a big heavy basket of washing. Lean forward, breath out, activate pelvic floor, push through the heels to come up. And now everybody relax your pelvic floor. Notice how it's lifted. Can you give me a thumbs up if you felt that lifting? Brilliant. Let's just do one more time and down again. We've got heavy weight here. Okay, so forward, pushing through the heels, breathing out, and then relaxing pelvic floor. And if I did have a heavy weight and I'm doing some weights at the gym, I'm breathing, yeah? So every time I'm lifting this heavy weight, I'm doing a, because what's happening is as I breathe out, pelvic floor muscles lifting, all of my deep core muscles are activating, supporting my spine, lifting up. And then when I put those weights down, I have to relax the pelvic floor muscles. We want that length as well as the switching on. Now, how am I going for time? I'm literally running out of time. So I'm going to go straight on to showing you a wonderful, quick way to relax pelvic floor muscles. And if you have a rectocele in particular, this is a good one. So a bolster or a firm pillow underneath your bottom. And I'm going to use the chair actually for this as well. So leave that close by. You want to have a prop like that underneath your pelvis. Now, I'm not here, yeah, so I'm not in a bridge. The prop is just underneath the pelvis. So this is the top of my pelvis. The bone here is just at the edge of the bolster. The lower back, where I was saying that those psoas muscles, they attach to the lower back here, the lumbar spine. In this position, they're getting a natural release. I've got gravity here, just releasing the insertion points against my lumbar. And then because I'm open here, I can drop my knees out even and get a bit more of a release here. So this is a great position for loads of reasons. And you can come into baby pose and legs up the wall or legs on the chair to relax. It helps to take the weight of the organs off the pelvic floor. So especially if at the end of the day you've got dragging, heaviness, prolapse is feeling worse, leaking is worse, then spending 5-10 minutes with your pelvis up and slow breathing. So focusing the breath here, back of the lungs. And because I'm in a slight inversion, the diaphragm, with gravity, it's easier for the diaphragm to push the breath out of me. So I get that naturally extended exhalation. My chin is also naturally drawn back. So I'm naturally getting that Jalandhara Bandha, that slight constriction on the back of the throat, which makes the diaphragm have to pull a bit harder to get the lungs working a bit more, so I can extend slowly into the inhale and slow and extend that exhalation. All of that is fantastic for the nervous system. As a literary side, I love we have oxytocin receptors at the top of our back. So when our backs are on the ground like this, getting a little activation of oxytocin as well. In this position, in my program, I teach the hyperpressive breath as well, which is a great full Uddiyana Bandha. It's a great practice for pelvic toning, especially if you have got prolapse. It's really fantastic, and I use this breath in different positions that uses gravity in order to really help with mitigating symptoms of prolapse. But in this position, because my bowel and my anus is now dropping back against the lumbar, so where it's supposed to be, when I do a breath out and I do that little activation, I'm getting an amplified suction upwards. So I'm amplifying the that pelvic floor activation, sucking upwards. And what I do with the extra breath as I go, breathe out, keep the breath out, rib cage expands. And on a false inhalation, I'm getting a massive vacuum to pull those organs back up into place. But this is a great position for activation work, strengthening work, as well as that total release work. And as an extra little bonus, I wanted to tell you, if you do find that in the night you have to get up loads to go to the toilet, stop drinking lots of water. Drink lots of water during the day, super important. Don't reduce the amount you drink, but stop drinking much water a couple of hours before you go to bed. So you're just having little sips of water after that. And then before you go to bed, about half an hour before you go to bed, do this and paddle your feet. So maybe you've got your feet over the edge of the bed. You're just paddling your feet. So this stimulates your kidneys. So you do a bit of paddling, or legs up the wall, which is really nice. You're just paddling your feet, do a bit of baby pose, all this sort of thing. And get your kidneys working so that you can go for a decent wee, and then finish your wee, do the closing the hose, relaxing the detrusor muscles of the bladder, and then that's going to reduce your likelihood of needing to go to the toilet overnight. So ladies, I'm going to just come back here and I'm going to go back to my sharing of my screen. Zoom. Hang on. I'm going a little bit over. I just wanted to tap on what else we can be doing. So again, in my program, I go into the nutrition side of things and the supplement side of things in great detail, but very overview. Body identical vaginal estrogen is a very low dose form of HRT. It's not systemic. It doesn't go into the bloodstream. It's not like regular HRT, but it can make a profound difference to re-elasticize those muscle fibers. And it can be life-changing for many, many women. So if you haven't already explored that, or if you'd like to know more about that, I'd be very pleased to tell you more about that, plus other natural lubricants that can be incredibly helpful. But I think that most women, and I talked to a urogynecologist when I was about 46, when I first started my women's wellbeing program, actually, and she said to me if she could just get every woman to start using vaginal estrogen from around 43, she reckons that the incidence of prolapse and all the other dysfunction issues would massively go down. I mentioned before how we've really got to get on top of constipation. So increasing your dietary fiber, just getting a shitload of vegetables into your diet, and a lot of hydration. I suggest again in my program, I talk about how to get that hydration in, because a lot of us drink water, but we're not actually absorbing the fluid. And I would say, if you've got your plate of food, eat your veggies first, then your protein, and then your carbs. So if you just keep focusing on getting veggies into every meal, It's great. Resting your gut overnight, and we all know a bit about
Can I just jump in there quickly, Linda? The veggies first thing also reduces your blood glucose as well. Literally the same things you eat, veggies first will reduce the overall. It's amazing, veggies first.
yeah, I mean, we need to eat a lot more vegetables. Most of us don't do nearly enough. Obviously, the reduction of the bladder and bowel irritants. I mean, we all know what it's like. We've had far too many coffees. We feel it. Again, alcohol, we feel it. And we know what it's like to have too much sugar, too much chocolate, and the next day you feel all inflamed and irritated. So we know this stuff. I just wanted to flag and let you know that I do go into all of this in great detail in my my 5-week pelvic core restore stop program. So the stop program is my signature methodology. I have developed it, like I said, over, wow, it's been refined and refined and refined, and now I'm like, okay, these are the things that really work. And so I kind of, you know, just focus on the stuff that I know I have seen in hundreds of women that actually work. Renata, she had shocking constipation, and with that incontinence. She's amazing. She's got such vitality now. I had a lady, an old lady, Pat, who was struggling, really struggling, and she's doing really well now. I had a student just recently who had been watching her family sail for about a decade. She used to be a sailor in her youth, but because of not trusting her body, she had stayed on the beach, and spends all of her life basically supporting her family. And since she's been working with me, it didn't happen overnight, but over about a year, she is now not just out on the water for, in fact, a couple of weekends ago, 6 hours out on the water with her sons. And and she's also racing now herself. And the best thing is that she was saying that she feels for the girls who are out there sailing, for her to be a woman out sailing, whereas before it was all the mums on the beach. And she said, well, no one talked about it, but everyone knew why, and it was always the dads out on the water. So I just feel like, it's not just work where women are not showing up and not taking those roles because they're like, oh crap, I'm not going to be able to spend 2 hours in a board meeting, or going on site if there's no toilets around, or I can't trust my bowel, so I'm not going to take that position. It's relationships, it's exercise, it's the things that light us up. If we can't do those things, then yeah, especially I'm like, controllables. There's so much out of control in this crazy world. Do the things we can control. So in my program, it's 5 live classes with me. You get recordings of all of them. You also get 5 ebook learning modules, and I've broken down all of the exercises into little videos, and you also get how to classes as well. So those are really valuable, and you get those to keep. Well done, ladies. So, my overall message to all women, especially 40 plus. Yeah. So once we're over that immediate looking after babies, and we can start to get a little bit of cognitive attention onto ourselves, I'm like, we've got to treat our body as our best friend. We've got to treat this vessel, which is the only vessel we have in this lifetime. An investment in your vessel now, and your time and your money, your energy, will pay dividends for life. Yeah, what you do now is going to pay off for life. We want to be able to hit our second spring, in our stride, enjoying ourselves with nice vitality, don't we? But this is the symptoms, all these red flags are the only way our body can get our attention.
Mm,
Dysfunctions are the body's signals saying, listen, stop, you need to pay attention. And we are fools if we don't pay attention. If we
mm.
do the work now, we are going to be those old ladies. Well, I did this course a while ago, and one of the ladies on it said, I don't want to be, what did you say, like a smelly old lady in the nursing home with wet knickers. And I was like, oh no, I don't want it. We know none of us want that. And
No.
my big thing is, if we don't do the work for ourselves now, if we don't carve out time for us, we are not demonstrating to the younger generation, our daughters and our sons, how important it is to look after us, put the oxygen mask on first, self-care. So we cannot expect to change the narrative of busy equals worthy, that most of us absorb from our own mothers, if we don't decide. Do you know what I mean? If we don't just go, we are worth it, and we have to be able to go, kids, I'm eating differently now, or I'm going to be taking time out to go and do my yoga nidra, or I'm going to my yoga class, or I'm doing this, and I prioritize, somebody else is going to have to pick you up, or you're going to have to cycle home, or you're going to have to do your homework on your own, or whatever. Dad's going to have to read your book. Because when we constantly put ourselves to the bottom of the to-do list, we're not only damaging ourselves now, we are potentially going to be a burden on our family later on, and none of us want that. And also we are perpetuating the pattern of not listening to our bodies. By osmosis, our kids pick up on that more than anything else. The whole monkey says and monkey does thing. So
yeah, my poor kids are on glucose goddess, so they're like, they know vegetables first, protein next, carbs last. But they choose to do it is a different matter. But
I'm afraid I'm a little bit of I'm a bit of a hard taskmaster, I've got to say, because I'm so over women putting themselves last. And then I talked to a woman last time I did this. She was 60 and she hadn't had kids, and she had an amazing career. But after COVID, her company wanted everyone to go back into London, and her bladder and bowel issues had got so bad, she didn't trust her body to go back into London. And she was too embarrassed to talk to her GP about it. So she retired early. She retired early. And
yeah,
then she was like, "Oh, I wish I'd known this." I was like, "Oh my God." And she went to a GP about other things, happy to talk about, depression and all the rest, but not happy to talk about anything below the belt. And to be honest, most GPs will just say, do some more Kegels, or they'll send you off for MRIs. But like I said, tension patterns don't show up in MRIs. So, yeah,
I think it's amazing, and I think it's that self-awareness, because the jaw thing, I just thought I just overstretched with a yawn. I didn't know that was a thing that related to stress and potentially anger, and I was going through a grievance at work and a really stressful time. So and then how's that affecting me elsewhere, and my bladder control, my whatever you call it, victal control, and who knew? I didn't,
yeah,
only as I've slowed down and taken the time to look after myself,
yeah,
and withdrawing from that corporate life. I'm not giving up what I'm will be moving on to do, stuff around well-being and all of that stuff, which to help, I suppose, with women to love themselves and look after themselves first and foremost. I think what you're doing is fantastic, so thank you. I really
that's a perfect way to wrap up. Thank you so much. You're right. We need to love ourselves and look after ourselves, because we are worth it,
yeah.
basically. And we need to go on and change the world, essentially. So we can't do that if we are leaking everywhere and in pain and so on and so forth. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining this. And if you are local in Farnham, I am going to be doing this course in person. But if you're not, then the online version, you get that one-to-one with me as well. For those of you who've registered, it is really, really, really value laden. I can't express enough. I do this as a passion project, really, because it's something I'm just so passionate about, helping women to reclaim trust in their bodies. So hopefully I'll see some of you, and if not, see you around. And thank you very much for joining.
QR code
Thanks,
through. Or
Linda.
Oh,
That's amazing.
look at that. Otherwise, I'll tell you what, I will email with the recording. I'll email out the offer to you guys as well,
Thanks, Linda.
because I'm not sure if I'll be able to work out how to share the screen again. That was all a bit tricky, wasn't it? All right,
Take care.
lovely.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank
Bye.
you. Have a good Friday. Have a good weekend.